he called me. And I was screaming at him. I was frantic. You need to get to the house. Nikki's calling the police so they can break down the door. He said, no, don't call the police. I don't want to get them involved. I said, you're an idiot and you need to get to the house because something's wrong.
Well, I mean, it felt like it was, I think like when you say like more like a shy guy, it's kind of like I've never like been pursued by anybody before. It's kind of like I was the one, trying to pursue, because it just seemed like I was more in control.
The last time I talked to her was this morning. She said she was going to take the kids to a friend's house, and that's where she was going to be. And then I've texted her today. I've never heard anything.
And that never happened.
This all happened so quickly, didn't it?
It was insane quickly. Like I didn't she even told me like she was never in like a normal relationship. She would never have somebody over at her house like more than like once or twice a week, but she felt like she wanted me over there. And I didn't take control of the situation. It was like the situation controlled me. It was like a roller coaster ride that I just kept punching and taking on and just never gave up.
You might see the way evil and lies go together. If you try to follow a crime story, you might possibly see some lies pop right out at you. I'm going to read one of the letters that Chriswatts wrote. In this letter, he writes about the oxycodone he secretly gave to his wife more than once. He also lets out some secrets he hadn't told the FBI. Details inferring exactly when he gave the oxy to his wife. Again, we find out about the secret that he will take to his death and more about what he did, which he decided to leave out during his extensive conversation with the FBI. He knew family would see his wife sick, up late one night at her parents' home, but he showed no concern. Instead of being there for her, he ignored her distress, off by himself, knowing she was suffering, but she didn't matter to him anymore. There was someone else, a new woman in his life. She was more important. A future with her was his goal. It was just one of the attempts he'd made, which went undiscovered by his wife and her family. At that time, he was still thought of as being a good guy, a great father and husband. That's what people saw later in all the videos, and that's what friends and family said as well. This letter was written just about 2 months after the visit for an hours-long friendly chit-chat with Chris. They managed to keep him talking, regardless of the wretched subject matter. The agents remained friendly and pleasant, mindful of his willingness to share or possibly shut off communication. They kept him engaged in the conversation, with Chris returning to continue on even after a lunch break. Remember to read between the lines. Reality shows through the lies. He has to weave the truth into his lies to give his story structure. He hopes that alongside the true facts, his lies may be overlooked. That's the whole thing, to twist the lies in with the truth. Without the foundation of truth holding things up, his story would soon crumble too fast. So he weaves in the lies, spins the story with as much truth as possible, yet at the same time distorting things to make himself look innocent. The criminal has to mislead you, but the lies don't quite fit the big picture or the true reality. Like, for example, a string of beads. When the string is pulled away, the beads all fall. The same goes for lies. When truth is recognized, the lies are exposed. In this case, the string represents truth. But he's not only trying to deceive, he will mislead in other ways. There's also the fact that his own perception is distorted. He has a flawed view of things. That has to be considered as well. Any reflection coming from him is questionable. Anything he says, in other words, has to be questioned. As for the FBI, he seemed to be glad to see them, although he later admitted to his resentment for the surprise. On Monday, February 18th of 2019, 3 agents from the FBI, CBI, and Frederick Police Department showed up at the prison where Chriswatts was an inmate in Waupun, Wisconsin. He didn't know they were coming that day and wasn't happy when they arrived without notice, although he was polite with them and spent hours talking. He didn't tell them everything, but he did help to clear his wife's name. He wanted to get that part straight. He told them the truth about his doing it all himself, but did not give them the details surrounding everything. What he did and how he did it was questioned, with Chris responding, but not with full details. Even after they questioned him several times, he let out a lot of the specific points, but also left out a lot that would clarify so much, which has to this day been left open for speculation. Most of us have lots of suspicions and want to know a lot about what happened with the relationship with his mistress. Of course, he could have refused to talk that day, but he was willing to go on for a day-long conversation, at times avoiding questions and not remembering certain bits. He seemed to be holding back, and we find out later that's true in this letter that he wrote. And there was more to be told about exactly what happened that final day and in the months before. Questions remain about the exact timing of his romantic entanglement with the mistress and deciding to remove his family. How did these things go together, and how exactly did that work in to make events unfold as they did? Specific questions and answers about the mistress seem to have been cut out of the public's copy of that interview. I was left wondering and thinking that they had overlooked some major questions. In a case like this, where there's infidelity which led to crime, of course, many of us have questioned to this day what went on, and some people are more suspicious than others, but without question, the investigators would be curious and suspicious like anyone else, but they would have to look into it, find out for sure who was involved with actual facts, proof, and evidence, and not just speculation and suspicion. How do these two things intertwine in his mind and contribute to the final result? The true timeline of their involvement may show how and when the evil spirits, as he says, entered his thoughts and took over. Now, there's been a lot of talk that actually the relationship started maybe even a year before, because there were Google searches, and that they had met before at an outing on July the 4th the previous year, but at this point they've only admitted to a couple of months. Now, back to his mention of the evil spirits. Could there be a demon that led him along? Interestingly, saying there were evil spirits implies that he was being influenced, but he's not able to pinpoint that evil spirit more specifically. It could be he doesn't quite realize how he was influenced, being too full of himself and narcissistic to admit to himself that he was controlled or being led. His ego then making him feel as though he was a big man, acting out against his wife in an aggressive way. Meanwhile, in reality, he was just a foolish man, weak, and having achieved nothing but eliminating his own offspring, at the same time throwing away all the values we learn about protecting family and most of all children. His actions were the furthest thing from success. Was he duped into it all, being told his family was no good, his home was too big, his wife was too expensive, everything about his life was questioned? Was he being played like a fool? Is that what happened? As it is now, what we know is that this all occurred within the course of only a month or so. And that is hard to believe, with little warning for his wife, extended family, and friends to foresee such a devastating ending so quickly. Relationships we know can float into rough waters and end up in divorce, But this man had decided to remove his own blameless, innocent young children from the world. Though he has complained of not wanting to confront his wife, in this final action, he confronted her and his children in the most dreadful way. An odd choice to make, for according to friends and family, the couple had no prior violence in their relationship. The whole thing doesn't make sense. Things had not escalated physically in all the years they had been together. There was little warning for his wife, since he had mostly been a good husband, other than her recently noticing him as being distant and different, which she had started texting friends that she was a little bit concerned, and becoming upset since she was pregnant with the couple's third child, a baby boy. After that interview, he wrote the letter. He wanted to fill in some of the details that he had decided to leave out with that FBI interview, and he wanted to tell what really happened, and decided he would write his true confession, as he calls it, for the sake of his own image, it seems. But according to Chriswatts, he wanted to have his forgiveness and religious beliefs included in a book for everyone to see. He has read the Bible extensively and had a lot to write about what he had read and how much he reflected upon his life after the crimes he had committed. Memorizing much of what he read, he said he wanted to help others to avoid making the same mistakes he made. This would make him serve as an example of what not to do. That was supposedly his motivation, or at least one of the reasons he wrote the letters for the book. He did agree to it, so there must have been something in it for him. As well as clearing his wife's name, she had no responsibility in the crimes. She was innocent of any wrongdoings. As he wanted, his wife was in the dark about his adultery, which he kept secret to the end. And that might be some more of his motivation, because he didn't want to confront her and tell her that he was cheating. He would then be judged. But he planned and committed the crimes himself. He didn't want people to continue on with the lie he had told CBI during his first interview with Tammy and Graham. At that time, he was still a free man. He wanted to try and protect himself. He was continuing on with his cover-up of what had gone on that Saturday night and into the next morning. So all that information that he was giving then was pretty much lies. He was still saying he didn't know where they were and that he'd wanted them to return home. But the facts would soon show what he had done, and he would also reveal his planning weeks in advance. There have been questions about his choice to use his workplace as a disposal site. Not very bright, considering his work truck would quickly be tracked, and a team without doubt would scour that location, each footprint sniffed and photographed. It wouldn't take long before the police would find where his truck had been. That was his work truck, and it was connected to GPS. Did he really think he would get away with it? His colleagues would be arriving on site not far off from where he was. What if they'd popped in there to check on him or help him out a little bit early? What sort of planning and logic made him think that was a good hiding place? They talk about him having a high IQ and having an incredible memory, but it seems like he wasn't able to put the plan together in a logical way to actually hide something that he'd done. The next bit of information came as a surprise, and it was a shock to many, but he wanted to have his confession included with his newfound religious beliefs. Now that he has studied and memorized much of the Bible, this is possibly the new image he's made for himself, thinking he will save face for his life and image here on out. But it all happened too quickly, and it doesn't make sense. It's surprisingly fast and not likely or believable for him to become religious so fast after his crime. He's flipped very, very quickly. As soon as he entered prison, within only weeks, he had started talking about God and his reading the Bible verses even during his parents' first visit to prison. He was already talking about Bible verses, and his family knew that he'd memorized much of it and had even asked for help in explaining the Bible to them. His family seemed very impressed with him, and they were very forgiving as well. But the thing is that it's actually a very sad irony that he couldn't find this religious calling and wisdom before doing away with his own family, because in all fairness, they should have had some of that wise benevolence directed towards them. Now, most likely wanting to be seen as a new man, since he's found religion, he's distancing himself from his crime while studying righteous beliefs. He figures that shows everyone he's made a turn for the better now. His confession in the letters that follow is a huge and shocking surprise. In his own words, his letter tells in part what he never told the FBI, a warning for those who are affected by these details. The following may be very hard to hear for some. Now here's the letter that Chriswatts wrote, and this was written on Tuesday, April 23rd of 2019. He starts off saying, "Hello again. I hope you are doing well. It has been awesome talking with you on the phone, but I know the 15-minute time frame is a pain. Sometimes I can get right back on the phone, but right now there are other inmates that like to be on the phone as much as I do, so I respect their time as well. How's your dad doing? I've been praying on that every day." Yes, that petition really blew my mind, that people really want to make me suffer like that. Even if they did take my pictures, they can't take my memories. An inmate from another institution wrote me about that subject and said, if they take your pictures, they will need to take the pictures from the other 500 to 600 people that have their family pictures up on their cell, convicted of the same act. Do I feel like I should be incarcerated for the act I committed? I most definitely think so. Do I imagine myself ever doing anything like this or being a danger to society? I most definitely think not. If I were to be released, I know I would go straight to a ministry and start going to jails and prisons and help inmates. If God led me to be ordained, I would go that route as well, possibly even be a chaplain. Maybe the laws will change one day. My attorney team could see I was different and knew that this was a one-time occurrence for me. They told me that in Europe, the law is I would serve 20 years or so for homicide. And in California, after 25 years of imprisonment on a life sentence, you can be released if you've had good behavior. So, there's hope for everyone to live outside prison walls. I know, physically, I'm behind these walls, but my spirit is free with Christ. If God keeps putting it in your heart that there is more to the story than what I told the FBI, you're correct. I don't like saying stuff like that over the phone because I'm never certain when they screen my calls. I know I already told you the vision I had before August 13th, when I was lying in bed and all the lights were on in the loft and downstairs, and I felt so alone. That's exactly what happened April 14th, when I was lying in bed. I don't know if you want this in the book or if God does, but here are the things I left out. Now at this part of the letter there's a few more paragraphs, and he has numbered 1, 2, and 3. And so let me just start off here with the first one. August 12th, when I finished putting the girls to bed, I walked away and said, that's the last time I'm going to be tucking my babies in. I knew what was going to happen that day before, and I did nothing to stop it. I was numb to the entire world. I had literally taken my kids to a birthday party, played with water balloons, had an amazing time, sang songs all the way home, gave them a bath, shower, ate dinner, read bedtime stories and sang bedtime songs, and still nothing registered. When Shan'ann had to be somewhere, I always enjoyed taking the girls to places or playing outside because it was our opportunity to bond. And still, the night before, I couldn't stop myself from what I knew would occur the next morning. Number 2, August 13th, morning of, I went to the girls' room first, before Shan'ann and I had our argument. I went to Bella's room, then Cece's room, and used a pillow from their bed. That's why the cause of death was smothering. After I left Cece's room, then I climbed back in bed with Shan'ann, and our argument ensued. After Shan'ann had passed, Bella and Cece woke back up. I'm not sure how they woke back up, but they did. Bella's eyes were bruised and both girls looked like they had been through trauma. That made the act that much worse. Knowing I went to their rooms first and knowing I still took their lives at the location of the batteries. Number 3, the reason the medical examiner found oxycodone in Shan'ann's system is because I gave it to her. I thought it would be easier to be with Nicole if Shan'ann wasn't pregnant. I don't know if this was a spiritual visit, but I had a dream Cece was dancing next to my chair in the cell. When she was dancing, all of my folders on the chair started moving, and I thought she was in trouble. So I said, "Watch out. Get away. Watch out." Then I woke up. I'm hoping she comes back. I hope everyone comes to visit me. I'm trying to see if I can clear my head better before I go to sleep to help. I like that John 10:10 passage you sent me. I wish I could have had an open ear to hear the Lord calling me back in June, July, and August. If we run after sin, we won't hear our shepherd calling us. I couldn't discern between good spirits and the evil spirits that eventually lodged me into a deep pit I couldn't climb back out of. Take care and God bless, Chris. As you can imagine, the prisoner, then pen pal and author, had many questions after receiving this letter from Chris, as anyone would. It sheds light on premeditation and planning and malicious actions he was willing to take. In a conversation afterwards, talking about it with Chris, specifically when he was asked about the oxy, he said that he'd secretly given it to his wife twice. Once at her parents' and the second time right before he killed her. At that time, he said that was the reason she couldn't fight back. So that goes together with what we've seen in the facts that he was photographed and his body, he doesn't have any scratches. It seems there was no struggle. It seems that his wife didn't fight him back. And that would go together with her not being able to fight. But now later, when questioned again about it, he changed his story, then saying he said he only gave it to her once. So now you guys have to figure out, you have to decide for yourself what you believe, but it appeared the next day when his body was photographed from head to toe, he'd removed his clothing, and he had no scratches. There was no sign of a struggle on him. So, fitting a narrative of a victim having been subdued with some substance. He had said before that his wife hadn't fought back, and he added that maybe she'd been praying. That was the story he gave. But the story just didn't make sense. She was a strong, outgoing person. We could all see in her videos, the way that she thought, the kind of person she was, more of an A-type, outgoing. And she would have fought back for herself and the lives of her 2 beautiful young daughters and the 15-week-old fetus, the baby boy that she was expecting. And anyone, in reality, any person has that instinct. It's a natural instinct to fight for yourself. If you're being attacked, who's going to just lay back and do nothing? So then, when asked where he got the oxy, that's another big question. He said that is one of the things he will take to his death. And there's been some question of whether or not any of Chris's statements are true. Some points can be backed up with facts, while other parts of his story can be looked at as possibly holding some truth. At the same time, some of his statements indicate lies. There's obviously things he wants to keep secret, as he chooses what to say and what to leave out. He withholds and turns away from the full truth, but some lies can't be disguised now, with the facts out in the open. Notice when the contradictions pile up, the truth comes out. Too many lies, each lie another weak link. One more lie might bring the whole thing down. So as we uncover the facts and the truth and discover what are the lies, we can figure out the true story. He's often hiding his thoughts and memory of what really happened, which led to his choices. And that is what we all want to know. Why did he make those choices? In the end, his actions revealing to us most truthfully the reality of what he was thinking. That's how we see the truth, through the facts of what happened, the end result. Now back to the question of an accomplice, possibly more than one. People do suspect that. Why would he keep the source for the oxy secret? What reason would he have to keep that person a secret if it was a person that had given it to him, if that is the secret? If it had been his wife's medication, which a lot of people are talking about this and saying possibly it was, then there would have been no reason to keep it secret. And that's what people have speculated about, that it may have been left over from a surgery. But then he wouldn't have to keep that secret to his death. It would be so easy for him to simply say that he used his wife's leftover medication, that's where he got that oxy. So he tells in his letter that the oxycodone was in her system. For most people, the effect of the drug will be completely worn off in 24 hours. So he's saying here that from the autopsy, that he knows that oxy was in his system. Whether he got the result, but that is the statement that he made. So what do you guys all make of that? Now, if you look up the oxycodone, supposedly it is, like I said, 24 hours, even sooner. It could be even, I believe, up to 12 hours out of a person's system, but definitely after 24 hours for most people. So that would imply that he'd given it to her, the day before. And then the cause, after death, I'm not sure how long it would remain, but it is an interesting question. And that would answer all the suspicion about, why didn't he have more defensive wounds, from a struggle? So was he protecting someone? If so, who? A close friend or someone he cared for, a work colleague, a family relation of some sort? Or is it possible that he is protecting himself, holding another secret that we don't know about? Could it be that he had been selling controlled substances or being mixed up in some other shady dealings? I mean, what else could it be? There have been many questions about who gave it to him, and he continues on writing. He has many pen pals. What is his motivation? What is he trying to achieve now? There's the question of the 35C, but we have to remember that his viewpoint is unjust. He's a murderer. His actions show us the dark reality of his ideas, and his final choices and outcome are the best way to see how he really thinks. The fact is, a criminal has to mislead, but the lies don't quite fit the big picture or the true reality. It's twisted and bent, and something is strange. That is why we're all suspicious. Lies have distorted the story of what happened. A lie cannot stand the test of time, and it has to be hidden and never come into the light, or it will be exposed. Until that day when the truth comes out, those lies will be surrounded with suspicion. No one has the strength to keep it going long. Either they will crumble or the lie will crumble. That's the thing about lies. They can't stand on their own. They are discovered too easily that way. Lies have to be hidden alongside the truth, mixed in well, so that possibly they will be believed to be true. The closer the lie is to the truth, the more difficult it may be to discover. This is the way evil and lies work. That's why when you see him talking, he has to give some facts of what happened, and yet at the same time, he's not quite telling the whole truth. He has to kind of stick to the framework of truth of what he knows happened, which are the actions which he sees in front of himself in his mind, and yet he has to twist things around to make himself look innocent. So, of course, it's best to remain unbiased and look at all the facts, every little bit of information. Any piece of the puzzle can shed light on a case. The tiniest piece can possibly flip around the scenario, showing a new reality, casting light onto a big piece of the case. It could be a witness account or physical evidence, but again, it's best to remain unbiased and ready to figure out how all the little bits fit together. It could be the smallest piece of evidence or bit of information that sets the narrative straight and shines the light on reality, holding it all together. Now, what I've seen that's really amazing in this community is that we all have our own ideas and insights on what we've seen. Each one of us brings a new outlook, new eyes. We have unique experiences that can bring insight and unlock some aspect of the crime. I see that in the comment section, so many bright ideas. I might see the scenario one way, and someone else will have a whole new take on it. Together, turning each stone and questioning every details. That is the amazing thing, is that one person, through life's experiences, you'll have more insight into a certain part of a person, of the characters, of the setting where they lived, where are they living, which part of the world, and other things as well. The job that they might hold, different factors that we see, which we know more about, and that can shed light on the case, on the possibilities, on the likelihood of things being truthful. And it's really amazing when we all get together, the way that people are brainstorming, and all of that insight is really, really remarkable. So I look forward to seeing your insights into the case and all the questions that remain. But thank you so much for watching today, and bye for now.